What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about Xbox Game Pass because we now have some actual concrete numbers as to how bleak the business is. There's been a lot of debate about the idea of Sony versus Microsoft, PlayStation games versus Xbox games, but it's not really about exclusives anymore because Sony is cranking stuff out. They are releasing exclusives, they're winning awards, they just get constant accolades for stuff like The Last of Us. Obviously, Astrobot just won a million Game of the Year awards and stuff like that, but I think a lot of people now are kind of curious because Xbox is giving up on exclusives. They're putting their stuff on PlayStation, they're putting it on Switch, they're putting it anywhere they possibly can, but there is still the Game Pass problem. Is Game Pass actually generating profit? Is it actually getting attention? Is it actually making more people play the games? Or is it a big crapshoot? A new report came out today that is very controversial. People are debating it and picking apart. A bunch of big journalists are yelling about it. A bunch of game developers are yelling about it. But it essentially said that games that get put on Game Pass drop sales by 80%. Now I want to talk about it because this just seems astronomically game end bad. But let's talk about why. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now we're going to take a look at a lot of very angry hot takes, and brace yourself for that. I do want to quickly say thank you to everybody that contributed to the GoFundMe I did, or even shared it out, or even just shared good vibes. I officially booked the surgery today. I'm getting my operation here at the very end of the month, so I'm gonna have no teeth for a bit. It's gonna be painful getting dentures and implants and stuff like that. But I just want to thank you guys for supporting me and making it so I can just focus on honestly eating and healing. But here it is. Xbox games that are included in Game Pass are expected to lose up to 80% of full-priced sales. An 80% drop in this market is unsustainable. I know we're going to take a look at a bunch of people that are trying to spin this as a positive, that not selling games is somehow a good thing, but let's just talk about it at face value. Right now, everything is ballooning in cost. Like, not just rent and food and stuff like that, but games. Like, an average game now costs hundreds of millions of dollars to make. I mean, it's pretty obvious that, stuff like Indiana Jones, that had to have cost $250-300 million at least, and it's really fun, it's really good. How many people played it? How many people subscribed to Game Pass to try it out? How many people bought it? It seems like not enough. Even comparing it to other stuff, compared to something like Spider-Man, which obviously cost $300 million to make, that means it needed to sell like 11 million copies, right? There is no way that this is selling 11 million copies, and more than that, these games aren't selling at all. People are just getting Game Pass. Now, people in the comments are pissed. If Game Pass wasn't worth it, devs would not be making deals. Simple. It's not for every dev, but it has its uses. Why does this article exist? Now do the same thing with other movie series, other TV shows, stuff like that. Are those being hurt by lost sales? Now, we're going to go into this deep because the Netflix comparison seems to be the primary defense of a lot of Xbox fans. Like, okay, they're not going to make the money up front, they're not going to make it instantly, but instead of getting a bunch of $70 sales, they're going to get 25-30 million people to subscribe at $20 a month, and they'll make it up over the course of the year. They'll always break even. But it seems like that isn't the case. So these are quotes from Chris Dring. We've talked about him in the past. He's a really good journalist. He digs into data and stuff. And even when I disagree with some of his opinions, he is definitely knows what the heck he's talking about. But he says this: Anecdotally, there are games that are being put into Game Pass that can expect to lose around 80% of their premium sales on Xbox. That's the figure that's thrown around. It's less of a big mainstream release, but generally, look at how Hellblade 2 did, or Indiana Jones, or Starfield. Game Pass is clearly hurting the sales of those Xbox games. But if it's a game that's on multiple platforms, it can be beneficial because there is a surge of players on Xbox that have a strong impact on the sales of PlayStation, for instance. This is an interesting idea, is that If a game is popular on Xbox, if it is celebrated on Xbox, like Sea of Thieves or something like that, when it jumps over and comes to PlayStation, which is a fan base that is trained to buy games for full price, they're used to paying for the games they play, not just subscribing to a service for the 1 month they want to play it, it does seem like the PlayStation fans, the Nintendo fans, the PC people are much more open to buying stuff than Xbox people are. This does seem to be a bit of a behavioral problem in a way, in that I feel like a lot of Xbox fans are now trained, don't bother buying it. If it's not on Game Pass, it just doesn't exist. A lot of indie developers and stuff have kind of alluded to the fact that if you port something to the Xbox, it can be very expensive to get it to work on the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. And then if you put it out, what if you sell 1,000 copies of the game? I mean, a lot of times it's just not worth it to put stuff on Xbox if it's not going to Game Pass. But here is a super interesting take that has pissed off a lot of Xbox people, and it's brilliant. So this is one of the main PR guys for Baldur's Gate 3, which at this point I think is technically one of the most successful independent games of all time. Baldur's Gate 3, I've played it so many times, I still think it might actually be in my top 10 favorite games of all time, but it's crazy how popular it is. To this day, it has hundreds of thousands of concurrent players. It is still one of the biggest games on the planet. They funded it themselves. They made it themselves. They did a successful early access. They did that perfect. And the guy is basically like, okay, everybody is saying this parallels to TV, a famously passive medium wherein games are decidedly the exact opposite. Anyone who thinks games should chase the economics of film and TV is obviously a destructive force. Now, this is a bold take. He's essentially saying, okay, video games have to be different. They're more expensive. They're harder to make. They're more glitchy. A lot of times they have post-game content and patches and stuff like that. TV, you set it and you forget it. Okay, here's a TV show. We make it, and in the time it takes us to do the special effects and stuff, the actors can go on to other projects. They could do a year-long press tour. There is way too much difference between TVs, movies, and video games. Trying to make the Netflix of games, it's much harder than just basically saying, subscribe for the games. It's not really going to have a one-to-one parallel because the budgets, the marketing, the ecosystem are just so different. But I did see that a lot of Xbox fans, including a lot of Xbox journalists, are pissed about this. Free-to-play games can expect to lose 100% of their premium sales. Think of the children. Clearly, this is Jez Corden trying to make fun of the fact that, not selling games is typically very bad. And he's like, okay, I don't understand your point, given that free-to-play games generate sales for the developer, whereas subscription games are proven to detract from sales. Now, in my opinion, he is burying him, but a lot of Xbox fans are like, okay, subscription games generate sales for developers. People sometimes, when a subscription-based game, they'll still buy the DLC or buy the microtransactions. This stuff, these games can still generate profit just like free-to-play games can. Looks like an appropriate comparison to me. I guess that's why I said subscription economics are going so brilliantly. Yeah, good point. I find it weird that a lot of these people, they seem to want to defend the idea of Game Pass. Now, I mean, obviously, I've said it, everybody said it. Game Pass is a good deal for gamers. It's pretty dang cheap. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games on there. There's great random stuff. It's not just Microsoft exclusives. But I think we are coming to a point where it's starting to be like, okay, if you're not buying games, we're not going to get a sequel. We're not going to get a franchise. We're not going to get that studio doing other experimental projects and stuff. If your game is not a hit at this point, it's going to die. And yeah, the Game Pass paycheck, when they approach third-party developers and they offer you an upfront sum, it's a healthy amount, but is it enough to make up for 80% lost sales? I guess this keeps coming to mind because PlayStation's tactic seems so old school, but it just works. I mean, Ghost of Yotei is coming out this year. There's rumors of other big PlayStation stuff coming out this year. Sony continues to make games that are high budget, that are high effort, that are very polished and fun. And a lot of people are going, okay, I want to buy that. I want to be hyped. I want to go to the midnight launch. I want to install it and make sure it's ready to go the second it drops if I buy it digitally and stuff like that. I feel like the hype, the conversation, and for lack of a better term, the economic engagement of Sony fans, it's in a very different spot than when Xbox is trying to achieve. I honestly feel like, more than anything else, the biggest red flag to me is the fact that they can't sell Xboxes. I know now everything's an Xbox. Your phone's an Xbox. Your PlayStation's an Xbox. This TV's an Xbox. But let's be real here. They're not Xboxes. The Xbox is a console that just can't sell. And if you have a box that is specifically supposed to be the Game Pass machine of, hey, here is a machine that costs $500 or $300 if you get the Series S, and it automatically plays games with next-gen graphics, ray tracing, and it's got a really, really good controller, and games are basically free on it, why can't they sell it? I do think it's a lack of exclusives, and I do think it's a lack of people caring about Game Pass at this point. There's one last thing I wanted to look at. This was over on the Games subreddit, and I saw this quote that really, really stuck out to me, which is the fact that, okay, here's the real question, which is that, is this pulling down sales, or is it that nobody buys stuff on Xbox? How many people are going to buy these games? If they weren't on Game Pass, would Xbox fans have bought Indiana Jones? Even hypothetically, if it wasn't on Game Pass, would Game Pass people have actually bought Starfield for $60 on the Xbox? It doesn't seem like they would. And in fact, I'm seeing people here being like, look, man, I just don't care to buy this kind of stuff. I want to buy stuff on PlayStation 5. I'm excited to buy stuff on PlayStation 5. I originally used Game Pass as a try before you buy subscription for service, but I hated that if I got a game pulled from my subscription because it lapsed or something like that, all my progress was trapped to Xbox land. It does seem like Xbox has made a very big gamble. And in a lot of ways, that gamble has exploded in their faces. Xbox is obviously going third party. I know people get pissed about that. I definitely see quotes of people tearing their hair out mad when anybody says Xbox is going third party, but I mean, it's happening. It's already happened. It's currently in the process of happening. At this point, it's just about thinking, okay, will Game Pass continue to exist? Will Xbox game studios continue to exist? Even third party, can they sustain themselves? It's a rough market, but what do you guys think? These have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. I just find the whole thing to be deliciously interesting. But thanks for watching. Give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh man, since I'm going to lose so much weight after the surgery because I'm probably not going to be able to eat for pretty much a whole month. So I'm trying to bulk as much as I can before I lose all my muscle. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.